Can you do can you do me a favor? Can you look in the camera and say like, comment, and subscribe?
Like, comment.
Like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. So to my grandson's channel. Say like, comment, and subscribe to my grandson's channel.
Like, comment, and subscribe to my grandson's channel.
Okay, so today we have Brian Quinn, the owner and CEO of Granite Management. And Brian is actually the first person that I've had on that I currently work closely with. So we go back way further than that, probably like 15 years now, but we still partner very closely on a day-to-day basis. I'm excited to have you on. Thank you for doing this. But before we get into it, let's just start with the basics. Can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do today?
Yeah, thanks, Anthony, and a pleasure to be on here. And always a pleasure working with you on this. And yes, we have been working for a long time, and it's been a lot of fun. So yeah, Brian Quinn, I am the founder and currently the owner or majority shareholder of Granite Management Limited, and we are a captive management and consulting firm specializing in bringing employee benefits into captives for our clients. And we've grown over the last 15. We're 15 years old this year. And over those 15 years, we've grown into the largest provider of EB captive solutions, which is something I'm very proud of. And I think we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we go through the podcast today. But, my industry is I've been in insurance all my life. I went straight from my education straight into insurance at a very low level. And I want to sort of talk a little bit about that later on. I'm working through that. And then I found a sort of niche where I've ended up in this employee benefit sphere and grown Granite to where it is today. And that's providing people with the ability to save cost within their captive programs, with their EB captive programs, but at the same time giving their employees more and benefit, enhancing that benefit offering. So cost affordable, better, and good. So it's like a win-win across the board. This is really what we're doing at the moment. So that's a little brief overview of who I am and where we are at the moment.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, and I've had a couple of guests on who've talked about captive in the past, but it is something that I'm also very passionate about. So it probably leads into why we work so closely together and why we've been able to create a lot of things.
Well, I'd like to think I taught you a little bit about captives over the years.
You did. Yes.
I remember your first trip to Bermuda about 15 years ago when you worked with GSK, and we were working on the captive then, and you were sort of very green, and you and the whole thing, we were sort of explaining it to you, and it's great to see how you've come from then to where you are now, a huge proponent and supporter of the captive solution globally, and what it does, and the advantages. To this day, I think we've done a lot of really good stuff with it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I also, the flip side of that, even though I was new in my career then, it was my first role. We just started working together. I remember going to Bermuda, which was a cool first business trip. Well, first international business trip. My first business trip was to New Brunswick, New Jersey. So not as cool or glamorous as Bermuda. But the flip side of that, from my perspective, it's cool for me to see how Granite has grown like 10x since then too. So congratulations on the success there. You have an awesome team that I love.
No, we're very proud of that. No, and I think you say you work with me, and let's be honest, you don't work with me much. You work with the team.
Yeah, the team's fantastic.
And the team is what does it all. And I've grown up the team, but I created a model, and we can maybe you a little bit more about that as I go through it. But sort of explain how I got to where I am today. But the team under us is awesome, and we are, because I came from the corporate area, I was on that corporate side. We've developed a team that is focused on what the client wants, not what's good for us. So unlike all of our peers, none of my team, no one at all is incentivized on sales. Sales is not an incentive. It's actually client service and client satisfaction. That's all we work on, and working to do the best for the client. And that's an important part of it. So the client-centric piece is very important. I suppose it's probably a good idea to give you a bit of background as to where Granite came from and how we got there. Would that be?
Yeah, sure. I was just about to ask, because one of the things that I'm curious about is what lit the spark. So what was your inspiration to do this? What originally drew you into this? Whether or not it was, if you want to talk, you said earlier you've been in insurance your entire career. You could talk about what drew you to insurance, and then what made you want to start on this side and move away from corporate.
Well, that's going way back. But what drew me to insurance is actually a funny story, and it was with things that the place where I was drawn to insurance. I was back in Ireland last weekend visiting my mother, but I was back there, and the place where I was drawn into insurance has now been knocked down and doesn't exist anymore. It was a local pub near my house in Dublin, and they're building apartments on it now, which is very sad. But I was actually called by a friend, a school friend of mine, and at the time back then in Ireland, it was late 80s or early 90s, I can't remember. But a friend called me and said, I have a job that you might be interested in. And in Ireland at the time, unemployment was about over 20%. It was very hard to get a job, and I was sort of finished. I was looking for what would I do, what would be career, and I said, okay, I'll go up and meet this guy, and worst case scenario, I'll have a pint with him, which was good. But he just told me about this thing called an insurance broker. I had no idea what an insurance. I knew what insurance was because I'd studied it in school, but an insurance broker, I had to actually go down to the library the next day because we didn't have internet. So I went to a library, went in, looked up what an insurance broker was, and next day I went for an interview and got the job, still not knowing what it was. So that was how I got into insurance. It was very strategic. But I got into insurance, and actually I started off in a very, the company I worked with, everyone started in the mailroom, or as we called it, the post room, and everyone started there, and you progressed. You learned the basics. The mailroom, then within a month you were transferred to what we're looking on simple admin, and then you went to claims, and from claims to broking, and it was a process. The quicker you did, the better you were. So I was pretty bad, so I stayed in the mailroom for far too long. But eventually I made it out of the mailroom, and I got in, and I really started to enjoy insurance, and became a career, and I worked in Dublin. But I worked on nothing to do with employee benefits. I was a property casualty. I actually was a construction brokerage at first, working on construction programs for Ireland. Then I moved company, left that company, went to another brokerage, and I became a healthcare broker, but still doing P&C. So I was working on liability insurance for hospitals,
Okay.
doctors, care facilities, and so it was a different type of work, but still property casualty. And nothing to do with employee benefits. And then I did that for a few years, very successful, and then I moved to London. And London again did a long stint with at the time called Willis Caroon, now known as, or now a contingent part of WTW.
Okay.
Willis Caroon was one of the previous Spradical sons. I was actually Stuart Wrightson at first, and then became Willis Caroon. And that I worked with them, became a global account executive, and that's where I got sort of a feel for global.
Okay.
Because in Ireland, I only worked on local stuff. And then when I moved to London, I started working really global and became a global account executive for multinationals. And again, multinational programs. I'm giving all this because it gives a bit of base to where we went.
Yeah, sure.
Today.
Yeah, this is good.
That whole P&C thing that I did was just very good. Gave me that sort of different insight into the world of insurance, and was very good. Then after 6 years with Willis in London, I left and I joined General Motors. General Motors actually brought me in to work in their captive insurance company in London. So I was actually European risk manager, and my job was actually I was bringing risk into the captive, but helping the local businesses. So we were looking a little bit of the property casualty, but also customer programs, little bits and pieces. So I was developing auto insurance for the UK, which was when you bought your car, you could buy the Vauxhall insurance that went alongside. And then we did that in Spain and other places. And we were doing that. And then one day, a young man called Walt Ralph, who you remember.
I remember.
One of my old business partners, but Walt, he had contacted the captive. He said he'd heard an idea about using the captive for their employee benefits. I said, I'll do this. It just looked interesting, and Walt was a really nice guy. So we just picked this up, and we started looking what's the potential. I think at the time the consultant broker said we possibly would have $10 million worth of premium globally that we could put into the captive. We started it in 2001, I think it was. By 2006, we had, I think it was $100 and something million of premium in the captive.
Wow.
So that should, like, the consultants didn't know, and that's not the consultants' fault. Nobody knew what they're doing. So at that time, we were the first U.S. company to bring employee benefits into a captive, and I think the fifth or sixth company in the world. So I think we were more aggressive in terms of bringing stuff in, because when at GM at the time, I think you might remember, GM went bankrupt in 2008 while I was working for them. But not the captive did not go broke, so we were not part of that bankruptcy proceedings, but we were in the middle of that. But when we started the captive, we were looking at one thing. It was cost. How can we save cost? How can we minimize cost? And we didn't want to bring cost back to the center, because the center was burning cash very, very strongly. We were not looking at benefits. We didn't care about benefits. That was a HR issue. So we outsourced it to HR, but we helped them. Said, look, we want to bring in your medical in France. We want to bring this, we're going to save you costs. He said, you can't. I said, well, we did. We saved them costs. But we were able to do it because we were just very aggressive, and we were happy to take risk in because we had that ability within the captive. So we were bringing business in, looking at the savings, and that's when we started. When we got to like about 2005, 2006, we got to a size, we started getting attention. So at that time, the CFO of GM called me to his office, and we got awards and said, "Well, you've saved us a lot of money." HR started realizing there was more to this, and that's when we saw we could manage it. The actual captive became a part of the DOA, which is the delegation of authority process within GM, and still is to this day, I believe, because the captive then became the gatekeeper, which was another advantage. But that's when we looked at, well, benefits. Can we enhance the benefits? Can we do better? So that's where all the ideas came from. So about this time as well, I was getting calls from my peers at other companies who wanted to do the same. So I was helping them out, and a lot of people, I think you know them, and we were helping them. And this was where I got the idea. I went, I could set a business up doing this. This is a good idea.
Okay.
Going back to me personally, and my wife will always say this, like from the day she met me, I've always wanted to have my own business. So
okay.
I got this, and you're always looking for that idea, and it's never, you look at everything and they said, this is an idea because this works, and I knew it worked, and it's been pretty successful. That's where the idea for Granite came from. Now, it was not setting a company up is not easy. It's the actual day when you sign it is a huge relief. But I remember I went on a week's holiday because I just needed to sleep for a week. Day one, it's a roller coaster of a ride putting that all in place beforehand. Like the legal discussions were massive because we did want to set a company up, but there was 3 partners who did it with myself and 2 other ex-GM people. Walt was one of those. We wanted to start with a client, and GM were happy to start with us, which was great. But we also then had to negotiate. So they're negotiating with non-known entities. I think we started off with a 20-page document, which was going to be our sort of statement of work contract, and we ended up with a 450-page document over a 7-month period of discussions with lawyers. I learned a lot in that period, but it was challenging. But the fruits have come through. That was the start of GM. Oh, sorry, Granite. That's where we got into the whole thing. Then from there, we went to like, how do we win business? And we started checking up. And then, like, I remember as I was going on that vacation, one of the peers I had been talking to at the time rang me up as I was packing at home to go meet my family and take that week's sleep that I needed. And this peer at the time rang up and said, we've decided we're going to go ahead with the captive EB solution. We think what you guys have done is great. Can you tell me a consultant I could use? Which was very fortuitous on day one of the business. That rang up. And I said, yeah, yesterday I couldn't, but now I can. And they, again, a lot of kudos to that now still a client today.
That's great.
Yeah, appointed us, and you work for them, Anthony, now. Yeah, so they
I didn't know Microsoft was your second client.
Yes,
I did not know that.
They put a lot of faith in us, so we have a lot of go back. So they rang us up, and it was again a process. But I'd learned so much to the process with GM. It actually was, I knew what to do there and get it over, and it was a process. Yeah,
that's very fortuitous, because then you got to use that name probably to say, like, hey, I'm partnering with.
Well, you could say it, but actually, it gets worse, because then we got your other employer, GSK, appointed us the same year. And that was your old colleagues who were having some issues, so they appointed us. So we had the 3. We actually then said, no, we don't want any new business because we had been too successful.
Gotcha.
3 guys who worked for GM, and now we had GM, Microsoft, and GSK. And you're looking around and going, well, who's going to do all the work?
Yeah, yep.
We had to, and if you remember, we brought in that one employee. He joined us, and great, but we had to train him, and we had to train more people and get employees to do the work. So there was the whole process there. So after that first really successful year, we then had to spend a lot of money for the future, building. So we didn't actually win any business for another 2 years.
Okay.
And we didn't, and that was on purpose.
Yes.
And that was a real learning experience, because, when you go into a business from another business, that you're just taking the models from there and you said, I'll use this here. We quickly realized this isn't going to work for every client, because every client is different. And that's, as you know, we try to bespoke everything as much. It's standard, but everything's a bit different. And that was our first big lesson: is Microsoft wanted things in a different way. And they had different requirements, so we had to adapt to that. GSK was different, and then and that's been the model is in there. It said yes, we can. The data is the data, and that's what we learned is key. Key is having that data at the back end, and then growing. That's how we grow the business, working through that, and just being that 100% client focus and what does the client need. And I think that's honestly why we've been successful is we really do look at what do they want and what can we do to get there, and being very honest. If we can't do it, we can't do it.
One thing that I think you guys do really well too is you are honest if you can't do something, but you're always open to, if we want to get something done, you're willing to try to figure out how to do it. Like there's obviously sometimes there's back and forth. You have some people on your team who are more conservative than others, so but I like that we get both views of things, and then ultimately, even if you're like, I don't think that this is going to happen, we'll try, but I don't think it's going to happen. You guys position yourself differently. It's a unique relationship. I think it's a true partnership, the way that we work together, and
thank you.
Yeah, so
but thank you for saying that. And but we love working with you. Like I think you challenge us, and that's great. Like, can I segment off to the umbrella story?
Sure,
little tangent. One of the key things that we've developed over the last few years is the Granite Umbrella project. It's different names at different companies. It's called HPP at Microsoft, and it's been very successful for Microsoft. And you're a key proponent and actually the manager for it, Anthony, and it's been really good. But where that came from was I was in a meeting in Redmond with the older team who were all there, and I think you know who they all were. And I remember your boss's boss, I don't know where he is in the upper thing, but he just came out with this idea. He said, I want to do he called it GARP at the time. And he said he wanted to create a global program to provide cover that's not elsewhere provided, and we had a few things that we looked at and we were trying to put it through there. So, and I'm not going to go into details on that program. This is just the story of how that came on. And I said, yeah, I'm sure we can do that, but let me, I don't know exactly how we'll do it. And I was very honest with him. I said, let me look at it. And as I was going back to the airport, I rang Vrej, and Vrej is my business partner in here and the number 2 in the company. And I said, Vrej, they've got an idea, and I won't repeat what he said to me, but the gist of it was, what are you doing? That's impossible. We can't do it. And you're an idiot. You're an idiot. That was then to today, where he is the biggest proponent of the program. And, he was a big part of making it happen. But that was that came as a request from Microsoft. And we went, how will we do this? And it took us years to put it together. We kept going and we found a way and was getting the right partners, and then the design of it. And there wasn't a policy. We had to write a whole policy, bespoke, and the team here, like Vrej, Ricardo, and myself, wrote that policy because the insurer couldn't. It is that what you said. We want to always, like, look, you ask us something, we'll try and do it. If we can't, we say we can't. But I always tell the team, don't say no. Say I'll look into it. Don't say yes either. But don't say yes unless you really are 100% sure.
Yes, that's one of the coolest programs. That's actually one of the things that attracted me to Microsoft. The idea of being able to lead that and building on that. And another one of the times that there was a little bit of back and forth on, no, I don't think that's possible, was the global expansion of it. You told me no. You threw pressure under the bus right there. You told me, no, we can't do that. We got it done though. Yes, but I think, but I honestly, I think I won't say, but like we've had people who have said before, like, is everything okay? Because of some of the, I won't say heated, I'll say passionate conversations that we have sometime around the going back and forth on things. But I love the challenges. I love the honesty around, like, this is possible, this isn't, have you considered this? Because that type of relationship has led to a lot of innovation on the things that we're doing here.
And we try to encourage that with all our clients to push us to ask different things, and every client is different. That goes back to the model that we've created. It's like you have to respond to your client and what they want, and they're all different. Like, and the umbrella is not for everyone. And then I think we've got about 7-8 umbrella programs now up and running. It's about 7 or 8. Every one of them is completely different because they are bespoke to what the client wants. Each client is, you all have similar global goals, but they're not the same. And that's what we, and I think that's our lesson that we've learned is, make sure you have to bespoke things for everyone, because that's what you do. Like, if you're buying your Surface, there's like, how many Surfaces are there? But they're each for each person. It adapts to that. And by the way,
nice Microsoft plug there. Yeah,
I know. So the one I have at the moment, I love, by the way.
I remember when you got it,
but I love my iPhone too. No, that one's gone.
I'm cutting that out, by the way.
Well, the iPhone, it's lovely.
Yeah. I'm just joking. I'm just joking. So pivoting a bit, I love going into that level of detail, but I am curious around so for someone who has no idea what goes into the work that you do, as someone on the outside looking in, what would be something that's surprising?
I think the amount of detail, because you look at me, you talk to me, and I don't come across as a very detail-orientated person, and I amn't. I struggle with it because I have to push it, but we do a lot of detail, and there's a lot of hard work goes into everything that comes out of this. So if you look at like that umbrella program, developing that was thousands of pages of research and putting together, and when all these things come through, and that's what I try and always put the team here. It's sitting there looking at that insurance is very complex. It's that detail oriented side of it, and it's a lot of concentration. You can't just walk in and say, hey, I'll just place the policy and create something. You have to really, that detail is massive.
Okay. So that might lead me to the namesake of this. So if I knew then, but I like to frame the question as in, is there one piece of advice that you would give to your younger self, or that you wish you had earlier in your career or your life, or that you would share with someone who's potentially looking to follow in your footsteps?
Yeah, I guess you might ask me this question, so I think about it a bit. Like my career, like I always wanted to set up my own business, so I reached my goal, and I think I actually reached it quite young because think about it, I was in my 40s when I got my own company, and it's been, touching wood, successful, and still continues to be, and I want to continue growing it. But I think one thing that I've learned is to listen to the older people around you, and you can always learn every day. And it's one thing I learned. I told you when I started my career, I started at the company started me in the mailroom. I don't think you can do that anymore because there's no such thing as a mailroom or a post room. You come in, you can't do that side of it. But I learned on that basis. We just used to get chunks of paper and learn. But I also had an appreciation for everybody within the company. I know it because I did claims for a while. I understand how the claims department works. I did that. But listen to the people above you, and you will always learn. Don't like. Sometimes there's idiots. We've all had bad bosses, but they got that experience behind them. And there's a lot of people that are gone now that I could have learned a lot more from. That's the key learning I have. But I think the main learning, and that what I've always applied to, is just work hard. Really, just always looking to do more. Because if you're looking to do more, you will get there. And that's the umbrella for working with you. You're a great partner. Like, you always look to try push people, put more in, push yourself to do that more. That would be my advice. And there were times in my career where I didn't push myself. I might have gone out and had a few too many pints.
That doesn't sound like you.
but but that's another part of it is that you need to get to know your clients and your people. You have to have a good rapport with them. I like to think most of my clients are my good friends. I put you down as being a good friend, and I think we're mutually there. But I think that's across the board. But if that friendship I should still be delivering professionalism all the time with them. So that those are my sort of learnings through life, and where I think that it's I do think hard work is that thing, and it goes back to what I talked about. The detail is reading that stuff and doing that's the hard work. That's the grit in the background.
Yeah. I think, I'm just joking about that. And I think one of the things that you say, like, you consider your clients your friends, I think one of the things that I've always appreciated about you is, in addition to that, or like to sum that up, I would just say you're a genuine person. I think there was a good portion of my career that we didn't work together at GSK, but we still were. There wasn't like a resentment there. It was the friendship that we developed was still there, and I'm glad that we're working together again at Microsoft. So I do think I was joking about the pint thing because I legitimately don't know how you do it. I can't hang with you when we do those things, but I've always appreciated that you have a good balance there, and I do think that's something that you've kind of cultivated within Granite as well, is there's a level of friendship on top of the level of professionalism, which creates a space for innovation, the back and forth, the challenges, you challenging us, us challenging you. So I think that it comes through in the work, and it comes through in your company as well. So,
well, thank you. Appreciate that. I still haven't said you're my friend.
I did say that. I did say that in the beginning. So I think that that's great advice. To build on that, that's partly why I wanted to do this, is I think that everyone, regardless of what industry you're in, everyone has some level of insight or something to share, and that you could learn from in the past, and how they approach things that might be different from you. And even if it's a completely different you're like, I would never do that. Learning how and why is always beneficial, and there's always something you can take from it. So that's why I like having these conversations.
Yeah, yeah, I haven't listened to all your podcasts. I've listened to a few, but I think actually one of the ones I really liked was your plumber.
Yeah, my brother-in-law. Yeah,
I thought he was fascinating because that's it's still about a passion. It's still about getting the right. It was good, and it's that that's what it's about. It doesn't matter what you're doing.
exactly. I'm a huge proponent of transferable skills. I said this before. I think, and that's important to me too, is I have people that I'm close with, my family, my friends in all different industries. And I think it's cool. I want to make sure that I represent everything on here. So, all right. So this has been great. What's next for you? What's your personally, professionally, what are your...
As you know, I am not retiring anytime soon. Vrej used to ask me when I was retiring. He doesn't anymore. So I'm obviously adding some value still. I want to keep growing this. Both my children behind me, but my children are in college now and they're following their own careers. So this is still my baby. This is still growing and there's still a bit more I can do with it. I don't want to grow into this massive. I want to keep it. The independence of Granite is very important to me. I want to continue to grow it. And I see myself being here for not going away anytime soon. That's really, I hate golf. And if I had a lot of spare time, I think you and I know where I would end up, and that's not a good place. Well, it is a good place, but just for evenings, maybe Friday nights. And we're not going to have any Irish stereotypes mentioned now.
That's great. Congratulations. I wish you continued success, and I look forward to continuing to partner with you for however long you're still there. So
thank you. And yeah, Andy, thanks for this. Is really great, by the way. The podcast is a really great idea because I think you are giving to people who are growing, which is really good. Giving to people learning and want to grow into the business, because I think more sharing is good.
Thank you very much, Brian. I appreciate it.
Best of luck. Thanks, Anthony. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.